This video will cover whole group lessons in a concurrent classroom. Whole group lessons are a staple in traditional classrooms and virtual classrooms alike, since it is the most efficient way to engage the entire classroom in the same lesson and ensure they all receive the same content. Additionally, a teacher may use this model to facilitate an activity in which both groups of students are interacting together as a whole class. The challenge for concurrent lessons is making sure both groups are engaged and no one is inadvertently ignored. This chart lays out teacher, in-person, and virtual student actions during a whole group lesson. You'll notice that the virtual students are doing the same thing as the in-person students. However, the teacher's role changes based on the purpose of the whole group lesson and where it falls within the engagement model. Whole group lessons can fall in any section of the engagement model in which all students are doing the same thing or have equal access to the teacher for assistance. In terms of direct instruction, both groups get the same content or interactive activity at the same time. The teacher does this by streaming the same content to the virtual students that the in-person students are seeing in the classroom. This can be done in a variety of ways. One way is to project the PowerPoint to the in-person class on the whiteboard and then share that screen for the virtual students. This is what Ashley Yitzin is doing in this image. Both groups of students have a very clear view of what is being projected. We do not recommend projecting BBCU to the in-person students during content presentations, as a visible window can be too small to be read at a distance. As an alternative, you can instruct both groups by projecting the lesson onto the whiteboard and having the camera focused on you and the whiteboard. Joe Seuss employed this method and found it to be a great way to engage with both groups by allowing the virtual students to see him too. He has BBCU open and facing him so he can see the questions that arise from the virtual students in the chat. Other times, he might project the BBCU so the in-person students can see the virtual students and twist the camera around so the virtual students can see the in-person students. Joe also found that the projector caused a glare for the virtual students, so he resolved this by putting up a piece of paper to remove it. Teachers who do a lot of demonstrations may choose this format as well. Julia Trigo teaches physics, so she frequently demos concepts with real objects. During whole group instruction, the teacher can formatively assess the student's understanding of the content by asking questions to both groups of students. Several pilot teachers mentioned that they felt disconnected from their online students and didn't hear from them as much when they did whole class questioning. There are a couple strategies to combat this feeling of disconnect for both the teacher and the virtual students. For example, the teacher might alternate asking each group questions. Other strategies include using visual cues, like sticky notes, or having popsicle sticks or index cards to call on names. If you choose to use index cards or popsicle sticks, have one cup or pile for the in-person students and one for the virtual students. These strategies allow each group to get more equal time and attention from the teacher. It also forces the teacher to be intentional in including the online students in the lesson. It's important to note that the teacher should repeat any responses that might not be visible or audible to one of the groups, as Kat Young is doing in this image. For example, the face-to-face students might not be able to read the chat, and depending on the microphone being used or how soft-spoken the students might be, the online students might not be able to hear the in-person students' answers. There are some questions to consider as you plan your whole group instruction.